Are you feeling like there's things you just can't release that are holding you where do you feel like you need to be? Do you feel dependent on a partner, a job, a pet, a loved one, or anything else? Well, you could be pre-code. I have so much fun with these intro guys.
Oh my God. I
And
love you. I love you.
before we
As
press,
soon as you started talking in that voice, I was like, oh, she's doing an infomercial right now. That's where we're going
Mm-hmm.
with this.
and we're going to get into the side effects of what we're talking about, but we're talking about pre-code. And for those
What
of
the
you who
heck
are
is
like,
pre-code D,
exactly.
Cass?
So this is a name I invented, which like what's funny is it'll probably get put in the DSM event. Is DSM right? Yeah.
Yeah, DSM.
Okay. I was like, good. I'm pulling out like psychology words. I'm like, I think I know what I'm talking about.
Yes, you do.
But this will probably be in the psychology books in years down the road. And I mean, I'm just going to take credit for it now.
You heard it here first.
About pre-codependency.
Ooh, it's a fun one.
Exactly. So, I mean, I'll give you a little backstory about where this came from, just so you're not thinking that we're all insane, which, if you are, welcome.
We are a little bit, let's be honest.
We have a tendency as a trio to travel and do things together that are sometimes for personal, sometimes for work, but a lot of times the lines are like really super blurry. Really blurry. And that's a beautiful thing because that's like a beautiful space of creation and a beautiful space of just non-attachment and newness and excitement that we all like, I think collectively speaking for all of us, we all really thrive in of this space of like work, play, fun. It's all together. It's all love. It all comes together beautifully. However, we all have partners that would not necessarily agree with this.
That it's fun.
Well, just that flow too. Like, I mean, I feel like it's easy for us to flow, but for some people that are on the outside of our trio here, like they're like, we don't understand. Like, is this a work trip? Is this a vacation? Am I supposed to enjoy it? But you're talking about this app, but you're talking about this, but Cass just got a client, but Kaylin is pitching an investor while we're like on a beach. Like, that is normal.
Very normal.
Like, that is normal. Jade's like, I just made this 6-person business deal. Like, no big deal. Like, here's a Mai Tai. And this is going to continue to get amplified as we work together and travel together more and more. So, little backstory is last time Kaylin was visiting me in Maine in the summer, Anthony, her husband, and Hayden, her son, and her internal son, came with her. And we had some business to attend to while like having our normal vacation. So there was some like would you say confusion or just like, again, the gray area?
We operate in the gray. And again, for the three of us, that makes sense, right? It works, it flows, it
feels life-giving.
Yeah, it's fun. Like the work is both, it's can be classified as work, but it's also pleasure. It's also fun. So it's both. But for not our spouses, there can be some confusion because it's like, well, wait, is it playtime? Is it work? What's happening?
Yes, it is all of it.
What is this?
So
what are we doing?
We were kind of, again, going in amongst our normal flow. And Anthony, who I love and has a lot of similarities to me and I really respect and just treat like a brother, had some like, not, would you even call it wasn't even an issue. It was just like some incongruency with like, is this work time or is this playtime? I don't fucking know.
What's happening?
Exactly. Where am I? So I was like, and again, me knowing what I know and knowing that like we're going to be traveling and we're going to be going to Hawaii and Florida and all of these places, I was like, let's just set some parameters. Let's just set some boundaries. Let's just put some things out there. So like you get your cup filled as well as we get our cup filled. We get work done. We have playtime. We have fun. Everyone leaves like really happy and lit up and like, we want to do this again. So one of my questions to him was, how long, like if you were to do on one of these work vacation trips, like how long can you be away from Kaylin? To which the response was, I think 45 or 90 minutes. I cannot remember. As Kaylin's like dying and then like laughing
I
right
think you said 90 minutes and he said 40 minutes or 45 minutes.
So like, and then
Like,
of
you're like,
course,
is 90 minutes good? And he was like 45.
I was like, just thinking about our schedule. I was like, we generally do things in blocks. So I was like, okay, we can do like 90-minute blocks, maybe go get lunch, another 90-minute block, go together, like maybe go to the park with the kids, another 90-minute block, like come back for dinner. Like, so just like different touch points is what I was trying to identify. And I think he did say 45 minutes and he goes, but I'm not codependent. And I was like, okay. So I'm like, is it like, and Kaylin, as you guys know, if you've listened to the podcast, has diabetes. And then there's in the diabetes world, there's like pre-diabetes, pre-this, like a lot of health conditions. It's like pre-hypertension, pre-this, whatever. So I was like, oh, is it like pre-codependency? Like not quite there, but like have to keep it in check. Like just be cognizant of it. And that's
like
really
I've seen people with worse codependency.
Correct.
So like I wouldn't put myself on the like full codependency scale, but like maybe a touch of it.
So this is where the birthplace of pre-code came from. And then it's funny because like as we've continued to work together, like this comes up on a very regular basis now with like our clients and like with us and like with, even in so much as like attachment to outcomes. We're like, are you codependent on that outcome? Like, no, I'm kind of pre-codey to that outcome.
And I think what's funny, and we kind of sort of started talking about this before we started recording, and we're like, stop, we need to press play first. But I think what's interesting is that, from a relationship standpoint, Jade and I both have that similar relationship with our partners of that like pre-codependency. And I feel like
I've been full-fledged codependent. Let's not mince
we were sugarcoating today.
I mean, I am a recovering codependent, but oh yeah, full-fledged.
Another spectrum we got happening here right now.
And Cass is like the opposite of codependency. Like Cass is like, how do I get further away? How do I cut all the strings? Like I have no ties to any of this. Like
I'm free.
Exactly. She is the opposite of codependency. Like you look it up and it's like opposite. See, Cassandra.
It's true. And I want to call out to you real quick. And sorry, Jade, I just cut you off.
No, you're good.
Is that like both of these things that we're talking about are trauma responses? Like, so there's not like a bad and a good. It's like, oh, wow, Cass, good for her. She's not codependent. It's like, no, she's maybe sometimes worse off because she's like, I don't need anyone. I'm talking about myself in third person. But I'm like, I don't need anyone. I can just burn all my bridges. Like, F you, and your mom and your sister and your dog. Like I don't need anything. So like, that's not exactly ideal either.
And we don't use codependency as like a negative or a bad thing, or even pre-codependency, or, whatever you want to call it, however it feels good talking about it. We don't use it as like a negative or derogatory thing. It's more of just like an identifier where it's like, oh, okay, then that like helps me understand the situation a little bit better.
Mm-hmm. Or like, are you having a touch of pre-code here? It has been like a topic that we've brought up with like in our inner circles of like,
yes,
what's going on here? And it's just been saying it is really kind of funny. And if you guys haven't listened to our all about the D episode, I mean, kind of goes hand in hand with a little bit more of the D topics, but like it kind of breaks the ice a little bit, and it kind of makes us turn a little bit more inward for us to be like, oh, what is really going on underneath the hood, like a diagnostic perspective.
Yeah, I think it's good here to put a couple definitions of codependency, right? One that I like a lot is seeking to heal in someone else that which you haven't healed in yourself. I like that definition. My daughter and I were talking about it one day, my oldest daughter, because I've recognized that I kind of passed that down to her. And she said, it feels like to me when I'm enter a relationship, I have a temptation to take my heart and give it away to the other person. And then I just follow them around because it's my heart that they have. So I have to keep really close. And I thought that was a really beautiful definition of that. And it is trauma response, like you said, Cass. So yeah, I just thought a little definition would be helpful.
That is
Sure.
helpful. And even just that visual of like the heart thing. I'm like, well, then like with mine, I'm like, where does that like, do I have like I don't know, a barbed wire fence around mine of like, you ain't gonna touch me?
Yeah, because it's
If I
been
don't let you in, you
crushed
can
too
get
many
hurt.
times.
Correct.
Yeah.
Go back
I
to the
can-
episode about the fluff.
Yeah. And I can move to that side of it, Cass. I can vacillate to that side of like,
Of course.
fuck you. Well, our divorce gates are both defined. That's another episode.
Mine are wide the fuck open.
No, our divorce gates are like,
Are
like
defined. Mine is
defined, which-
open.
Yeah, no,
Hers
I'm saying,
is open.
no, I'm saying mine is open to go in and out. Anyway,
Yes.
yes, it is defined. No, it is not open, but yes, you may leave at any time. Like, let's just
You
clarify.
may leave at any time.
Yes,
Yeah.
it would be another great episode too. But do you want to explain that now that you brought that up?
I'm sorry, I am referencing yet again human design. So we had an episode, which does anyone know which episode it was where we were talking about gate 25? It was just a few episodes ago.
Connection.
And so I'm referring to another gate that Cass and I share that Kaylin does not. And it has to do with your willingness to cut ties with people if they're not serving you.
And
And it
not just
can
any
be
people, your people.
Yeah.
your people. Yeah. Yeah. I definitely have that too. So,
Which I
Yeah.
think, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure Anthony, well, we don't know his chart, but I'm pretty sure Anthony has it too.
We think he does, but unfortunately, we don't have his birth time, so we don't have any information. We
I'm
have to
gonna
make
say
assumptions.
I'm going to say energetically it's there. Kaylin S. his wife. Would you agree?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I've seen him do it before.
So, but I think that we like have this natural tendency. Kaylin is a little bit different than the rest of us when it comes to this divorce gate. But I think that does play a piece in hyper independence or kind of this pre-code.
For sure. Yeah, I think back to Jade's definition, if you will, of what codependency is. I think there's also this side too of codependency where when you've been hurt before and then you find someone that's safe and doesn't and hasn't hurt you or doesn't hurt you, then you can form a codependency or a pre-code or whatever you want to call it with that person, because it's like, oh, well, they're safe and no one else is safe, but this person is safe. So like I have to be around them because they're my safe space.
So I have to ask you guys, is there a good level of pre-code? Like, is pre-code once a day good?
Oh my God.
I mean, the question came up. I mean,
Once a day. No,
I don't know, but like, is there a rate? Like, because yes, pre-code and hyper disconnection or independence rather. Both of them are trauma responses. We kind of identified that. Both of them, are like, are you? And my other question is like, are you predispositioned to pre-code?
I'm sure that's absolutely in your chart and in your human design chart. When I was reading up on it, because I said I am codependent. I know that is true about me, that I have a tendency to do that. And so I've done a lot of reading and studying on it. And I liked what one person said. It's the acknowledgement of it that's the most important.
Correct. Yeah. I think if you can recognize it, then I think it's not necessarily healthy, but it may be a healthy dose of Cody. If you know, like, hey, yeah, I can see that this is codependent, or yeah, I know this is it. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you don't do what you do or whatever, you don't still have the codependent relationship, or you don't still have the codependent behaviors or pre-codependent behaviors. But as long as you're able to see, like, yeah, that's what that is. For sure.
That's what that is. Just call it out. And then
recognize it.
that's was the key to me, kind of healing from that behavior is
And
just
even for
calling
you,
it out.
Cass, too, recognizing, right, in those opposites of like, okay,
Oh yeah.
I know what this is. This is my trauma response. And I actually can let people in.
I mean, even just in the conversation that we had earlier when we were working and not even on recording, we were talking about something and I'm like, oh, I'll just fucking do it myself. And I was like, I know that's not what I'm supposed to do. I know that's a trauma response. I know that's hyper independence, but I'm like, wouldn't it be so much easier?
Absolutely.
But no, like it is the awareness. And then also like, again, kind of not plugging this podcast, but plugging this podcast, like having those people who can also call it out of being like, oh, I love you, but like, that's a little like, where is that coming from? What is that like? Where's the root of that? Because that's where you really start like excavating. And I think of like gardening and pulling up the roots. Like if you just garden and you just clip off the top of something, shit's going to keep growing back and it's going to grow back bigger and it's going to grow back more abundant and it's going to grow back more in your face versus if you actually excavate the root of it, that's when things go. Because sometimes the root is staying in there and it'll rebuild. But like for the most part, when you start excavating it by the root, that's where things start to subside and not come back.
We are so fond of our analogies these past few episodes.
Seriously.
We've got like this imagery of pruning branches and burning and like excavating by the root. And we've got sheep buying and ducks quacking. And you've got to just go back and listen to
The imagery.
So for our
Beautiful.
So for our listeners who are not visually identified, I'm sorry, but no.
Check us out on YouTube. You can see our faces.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the newest addition to the podcast to give them a little bit of a plug. But for the past 5 episodes, we've been putting our raw, I mean, sometimes made up, sometimes greasy, 6-day washed.
I'm never made up because this is hella early in the morning. Every morning I'm like, ugh, here I am.
This is the first one that I, have makeup on. So
my definition of
you're
makeup
welcome.
now is mascara. So like, let's be honest, like made up term used very fucking loosely. But like you guys can go do the visual us where you can see, me in one of the episodes taking way too many tinctures or, in one of the episodes, all of our eye rolls and our laughter and, Kaylin shushing Cash and holding his muzzle shut. Like,
and I think I'm saging in one of them. Like, I'm like, oh God, I gotta sage.
So you get a whole nother layer of visual effects when you turn into the YouTube channel on top of listening to our lovely voices. And a lot of times we do call it out too, if we're like laughing or like we've said, all of our hands are on our heads and our heads are tilted off into dreamland. So it's like, that is a whole nother layer of like absorbing the podcast and absorbing the content that we're doing.
For sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, I haven't even mentioned yet. And I think I told you both. Do you guys remember me telling you that when I came to your house, Kaylin, and Cass, you had already gone to your Airbnb for the night, I think. And Kaylin was in the bedroom on the phone with a banker, whole nother podcast. And Anthony and I had almost the exact same conversation. I did not at that time coin this brilliant pre-code phrase, but that was like, it's a conversation that I had with him too. And from that perspective of having it myself. And I think I don't know. I think it's so interesting that we had it too. And it's like a full circle moment.
The awareness is there for sure.
The awareness. Yeah.
And this kind of goes back to our episode 23 as well, where we're talking about like these personal questions and bringing these up and just raising awareness around like us building like a life and a business together. Like there's individual counseling, there's couples counseling, and someone somewhere needs to come up with like a 4-person business. I jokingly said polycule the other day, like counseling. Cause I'm like, it's a whole nother level. Cause like, not only are you being experienced, but you're also being witnessed, but you're being called out by like now a squad and team of your people.
Yeah. I think that's why I brought up that story, because it's like, it's just another example of how the business life bleeds into the personal life. And when we get together, that just kind of happens that way so naturally. So,
and how money is an amplifier, which is another podcast for another time. But like, as we continue down this business route, like I foresee things being as like amplified. because it's one thing
Yeah.
to make a couple $100,000, but it's another thing to make a couple $1 billion. And that's where we're going, and that's where we're headed, and that's what we want to do. So to have those big dreams and to have money as an amplifier and to have these relationships and interpersonal conflict, not even conflicts, just conversations.
Yes.
Like they need to
Imperative.
happen. They need to happen now when they are a small weed versus
They're
when they
tiny.
are, a giant
Mhm.
sequoia tree of a weed.
There's another imagery.
Really
can't stop
painting those
myself.
pictures today,
I
Cass.
can't stop myself. You guys know I'm visual though, so
So am I.
you
I
can't fucking
appreciate.
pluck a sequoia. I'm just thinking like it's one thing to pluck a little weed, but like let's talk about this codependency issue, guys.
We can't fucking pluck a sequoia.
You can't pluck a sequoia.
We were talking about merch too just before we pressed record, and like all of the quotes and things that come out of this. So if you guys want, you can't
Might be
pluck a
on
sequoia.
there.
If you guys want, you can't pluck a sequoia mugs, let us know.
I like that one.
And I think
I like
that's where
that
we're gonna
one.
end this episode.
Perfect.